Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Just Be.
Hello.
My name is Agakura B, and I'm here with my amazing, beautiful friend Jenn B. And today's topic will be going from hurt to heard. And we're just excited to have you here, to welcome you here, and let's chill and chat.
Oh.
So, Jenn, when you hear hurt to heard, what comes to your mind?
Um, oh, lots of things. So, um, being both ADHD and HSP, I'm going to start with my highly sensitive side. When hurt means I haven't been validated, I haven't been seen, um, and um, ADHD will kick in and do the fight or flight, which is usually depending on what happens in that instance. Um, and so then to be heard is there's this release of validation then. When I heard hurt, I feel like a small little girl. And when I hear
Mm.
heard, I feel like this standing in my space person, and I'm seen and I'm validated and I am come as you are. Like that is what I think of when I think of hurt versus heard. Little girl versus taking up space. How about you?
Mm. Right. For me, it was more like hurt um is has this thing of unprotected. So I see, like, I imagine a garden and just people randomly trampling on the
Oh,
flowers, on the flower bed, and just being like, don't please, and not being able to set that boundary, or to
yes.
just be like, this ends here, this stops here. And it is also associated to a certain time in my life. And heard is something that is still new for me, but that I feel like I'm stepping and growing into more and more. And it has this, um, for me, it's like respect and honoring someone for who they are, and for all that they represent. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think
Oh, I love your
that's what comes to
garden
mind.
metaphor. And I felt that. I felt the stepping on it and the messing it up. But it's taking away the beauty of something that's growing,
Exactly.
like the life of it. And then when I heard
Yes,
you say no, not more, I think of this fence that goes up and says, don't step on the grass. I mean, it was very nicely done, my friend.
exactly.
I was
Yes, and
pulled
it's
in.
and it's interesting the way, for me, this title has actually made me also work on my pronunciation, because it's like hurt to heard.
Okay, I don't hear the because of your background in music and knowing the enunciation stuff, I can understand. For me, I'm like, she just said hurt and heard, I think heard. But with, yes, all of our listeners, I appreciate you enunciating,
Yeah.
especially for me, because there's times then I'll say, did I hear that right? Maybe I heard it wrong. And then my brain will kick in and I go off on a whole different tangent. So thank you for doing that. Um,
It's kind of a wordplay, right? And that's
it
what they live,
is.
that's what they live of. Yeah.
There's something about the alliteration of hurt and heard that, it also brings to mind the vulnerable and then the strength. I think you even were saying it in your beginning of yours too. I feel that that's a really amazing connection that we can take something from being vulnerable and injured to something that can be empowered.
Yes. And I would say you can still take the vulnerable into the herd, because it's still something that um can be
Yes.
a way of showing up. But
Yes.
then knowing that in the vulnerable space, I'm now heard. It's not a place where I'm unprotected and someone is using that to hurt
No,
me even more. But in the heard space, vulnerable is safe.
I love that. So, can they I'll ask you this question in your understanding. Do you believe hurt, vulnerable, and heard can both coexist, is what I'm hearing. With hurt, can we also have those two over here and still have some hurt happening, but the vulnerable and the hurt are kind of together?
Yes, I would say that hurt and vulnerable, it's true now that you're saying it, hurt and vulnerable can find their safe space in the place because that's where you're able to say this hurt me and you're actually being heard. So you show up vulnerable by saying I'm hurt and you're being heard.
Love that. That's good validation right there.
Mm.
And that goes to our conversation. We're going to move into, the whole compass of communication. If you don't know what that
Yes.
is, stay tuned. We're going to get to that in just a second. And then also implied communication versus literal. Do you understand what kind of person you are? There are times in certain conversations I'm implied. I'm thirsty means I need to go get a drink. Doesn't mean I want someone to go get it for me. If I'm just literally saying I'm thirsty. However, in some instances and circumstances, people might hear I'm thirsty and think, well, I need to serve her and get her a drink. So implied versus literal. What do you feel you are mostly over the around? I know it's a hard one.
I'm trying to grow into literal
Me too.
because implied has also made me sometimes then cultivate mean thoughts about people. Like, how can they
Mhm.
not think? Because I remember once um, having a phone call that was like 15 years back, and I was telling the lady at the other end, I'm really I have a bad cold and my throat hurts and it hurts for me to talk. And my implied communicator thought now that was the time where the person would be then let's talk another time. But she
Right.
didn't because she needed to talk. And so throughout the whole conversation, I was
Oh,
getting more and more annoyed.
right.
While literal would have been either not picking up and sending a text saying, hey, I can't talk, I have a bad cold, or picking up and saying, hey, let's do this another time, I can't talk.
Right.
So this they should know is not fair because it's not only that um it could be that yeah they could know and they're choosing to ignore, but it could also be that because they're literal, they're like, well, if you don't say, like, someone who's literal, maybe like, well, she'll tell me when she's tired.
Right.
So I'm getting to being literal, especially in the core friendships and relationships and marriage, so that you know that you better say it
Yes. Yes.
because otherwise it will take you off on a whole other
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Because okay, so I will I'll share a story is I'll have said something and my husband will all of a sudden look angry and I'll go, okay, what just happened there? And you can feel it as an HSP, you can feel it. You're kind of going, okay. And they'll say nothing's wrong. And I'll say, well, when this just happened, I noticed that you felt I got this energy from you. And then he'll give me a response and I'll say, so were you assuming this is what I was meaning? Because this is truly what I was said was what I meant. He went, oh, I thought your action doing this meant this.
Mm.
And I said, oh, okay. So that also opens up the communication and allows us to go, ah, so he's more of a implied or they're more of a literal person. So we can
Yeah.
figure that out.
And isn't it interesting how implied and literal has nothing to do with how long we've known a person or
Oh,
how close the relationship is? It's just the way people communicate.
yes.
And then you also, it's interesting, you have implied cultures. Because I
Ooh,
remember that my parents, they were part of this Christian exchange group once. And we had a group arriving from Japan. And what my mom didn't know, because so she prepared the dinner, she put it on the table, and um, she served the first time. But then she was like, if people are hungry, they'll just serve each other. I mean, they'll just help themselves. What she didn't know is that their cultures where the hostess or the host, they are the ones that keep serving. So the first night, poor people probably went to bed hungry. And then the second night, my mom was like, "You're eating so little. Don't you want more?" And they're like, "Yes, yes, yes, please." And so we, I mean, there was no
Uh-huh.
Googles and nothing. So it was like end of the 80s. Um, but then we just like my parents had this conclusion, okay, so probably it's not like polite in their culture to help
Right.
themselves. So that is also implied.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing in how I love that you brought the cultural up. And it's what we're raised with. It's the expectations, it's belief systems. It all comes through what we've learned, what we've been taught. And I don't know why my mind jumps to this, and I'm not sure. Maybe you can help me figure out. Is it in France where you can present your business card, but you don't start talking about business until you've at least had a drink or you had some socializing, and then you can get into business? I mean, it doesn't. It's like, okay, so we're here today, and we're going to talk about this. It's a, oh, it's nice to meet. Like, is that
Mm. That is France, and you also have that in Spain because I taught English and German at a Spanish company once, and they were going on about how rude the Germans are because they talk business over lunch. That's not when to talk business.
that's to
And for the
socialize and
German, it's
make
like, oh, the
connections?
lunch break, I'll either have my sandwich at the computer or I'll go out, but then we'll be talking business.
Big cultural difference there too.
Big,
Oh,
big, big. And it's so interesting because um I think now you have it more. You have like people updating on the cultures they'll be going to or traveling to or
yes.
making business with, but it is often underestimated that you can actually make a deal flop because of something like that.
A simple thing. It can even be a nonverbal. You're not supposed to put your hand out, or you're not supposed to tilt your head. It's very important then to I'm for myself telling it out loud. Um, learn about the different cultures that you're visiting so that hopefully if you're a person who wants to be heard, you're willing to hear others also. I think it's a give and take.
Oh, and now that I'm thinking, I mean, for us too as coaches, but then also other entrepreneurs that may be listening, we don't only deal with people from our cultural background. So maybe also I'm thinking as a coach to be present to, well, maybe with depending on the cultural background of a person, it may take longer to
Or
get to a certain topic, or maybe a question could be asked in a different way.
yes,
And it's not only always the personal thing, like the literal or
implied. Implied.
implied. It can also be like, well, in my culture, we don't talk about this until.
Right.
So to have that present, even as an entrepreneur, being like, okay, if I'm dealing with someone from another culture, it may be good to just be aware
Hmm.
of some cultural
Hmm.
differences.
And be open to learning
Mm,
and
mm.
to look to just having your heart and your mind just open. Less
Yes,
judgments, less labels, just open.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, hurt to hurt. I love this. I like that. Um, my journey is personal coaching really helped me to develop those tools. I love how much it's given me the strength to go, I'm taking up my space. And it doesn't mean I'm going like this and I'm just taking up lots and lots of space. It just means I can stand strong in who I am and
Exactly.
speak up if I want to, or
Mhm.
it's appropriate. I mean, I'm
Yes.
not going to yell out in church if it's not the time to be, but you never know if I'm led to
You
it.
never know. You never know.
Never know. But I love that we have I'm going to share with you the compass of communication. I know we talked
Yes,
about that
please.
earlier, and it's amazing what we learned, and I think it was based on the work of Jim Bunch and Coach Sean Smith. So we're going to take it, we're going to put it together, and then while I share the format of it, Agakura, if you're ready, then you'll lead us through an actual maybe like how it could be used. I'll just share the basic format, and then if you'll lead us through the dialogue of it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, everyone. Okay, so your compass of communication, the communication is formed on a compass. Think of north, south, east, west, depending on how you're looking at my screen. The north is your facts. That's what happened, the facts. The west are your thoughts and judgments about the facts. Then we've got the east is our feelings and emotions. And then our south is desired requests. So desires that outcomes and requests. And you really want your compass of communication to go north, west, east, south. So, for example, when this happened, I made it mean this. Because of that, I felt, we're going east, I felt what I really want to feel is blank. So my request is blank. Are you willing to do that? And we'll put a little blurb of this in the description if you want to travel along. But a great example, Agakura is going to share it. So just remember north, south, east, west. North, start with your facts, go to thoughts and feelings, judgments that you felt, go over across to feelings and emotions, and then what are desired outcomes and requests. And I hope that gave you enough time to think of a thing. I know you're brilliant anyway, so you always come up with awesome things.
So I'm going to give you an example of being an HSP, and my mom would actually always say that I was too sensitive. And there was once when we learned that, I actually was able to apply that because it was always like it was annoying and I didn't know how to address it. And so it was like, when you call me too sensitive, it makes me feel like I'm less or not to be taken serious or different, or like any the feeling that came up. I don't know how I put it in that place because I don't use English with my mom. So and no, what I made it mean is that you thought I'm not strong, or I'm not or I'm weak. This made me feel less. And what I wish, or what I desire, is that you understand that being sensitive is not being too sensitive or weak, and that you use another word. And for her, because we use German a lot, but it's not her native language, she actually was like, oh my God, I didn't know that this is how you felt, because what I actually meant is that you're very sensitive. And so it changed the whole thing. She was like, oh my God, maybe I used the wrong word, and I'm sorry it made you feel like that.
Oh.
And what's so important to notice about the compass of clear communication, that if we like jump at someone and be like, don't call me that, don't do that,
Mhm.
it's more likely they go into defensive mode. Well, when you do it from, when you said this, I made it mean. It's not that you meant
No.
I'm too sensitive. I made it, or I'm weak. I made it mean that I'm
And I
weak.
felt this.
And I felt like this. And what I want, it's the person, it's like, it's the hurt, from hurt to hurt. It's not
It
that
is
only
hurt to
you
hurt.
go from hurt to hurt. It's like, because you're not hurting the other person by your way of reacting, you're actually open to hearing them. They feel heard and they're like, oh, and the outcome is a totally different one than
Beautiful
would
thing.
be, stop calling me like that. Stop doing
Yes.
this. You always call me like that.
I mean, then they're like, well, no, I don't. You do this. And it just kind of is a ping pong back and forth where it's the
Exactly.
when you called me this, I made it mean this, and I really it made me feel like this. They want to help you then. If they love you, they want to help you and they want to be there for you and they will help. And then you know what? If they say, um, I'm not sure I could do that because I'm so used to saying this word about you because it's a beautiful thing. Maybe you'll have to have a little problem solving on what works for you or what would work best for you. If it's not like changing a word, maybe it's changing a behavior or setting a boundary. And so that's really what we're going to hopefully help you with today, is the setting of that boundary from hurt to heard using
Heard.
the compass of communication.
Yes.
And again, yours was a brilliant example with, this is what I heard you call me. This is the word I heard you say, and you called me that. This is what I made it mean. This is how I
Mhm.
felt. Could we do this? And
Mhm.
I love her reaction of the connection
Yeah,
where she stepped in and like almost felt like she embraced you. It was like, this is not,
exactly.
I
And I
know.
was able to hear her
Yeah.
because it was kept at this level of I'm open to hear what
Yes.
you actually mean, because especially being as close to my mom as I am, it was difficult for me to understand, to imagine that she actually would think like that of me. But because this is the way she says it when I cry, it was like, so is it like not okay to cry? And you know?
Oh, I love it.
And so it opened a whole new thing. And then sometimes it will slip and then we'll both laugh because it's like the old habit.
Oh, but isn't that lovely how you both laugh now? So you're both
Yes,
noticing and it's already released. There's no past
exactly.
hurt. Ah, okay. So we invite you to put comments in.
Yes.
Let us know if you use the compass of communication, have any questions about it. Just invite you to just try your compass of communication. If there's something you've been wanting to address with someone, feel free to let us know how it goes, and we'll be here. We'll be here to support you in that. Like, subscribe, come back to our next conversation. It has been a fantastic one. I love it, and I hope you took some good nuggets away. Thank you to my co-host, Agakura, and we hope to see you again
Thank
soon.
you. Take care. And remember to just speak.